trout ponds are over there, but we can't get to them from the path. But we're actually gone full circle back to where we initially started from, because we walked where that gentleman is up that hillside, and you see from the beginning of the video all this hillside covered in frost, and it's all gone now. But we're coming back up to that cottage, and this is where a bit of we can start talking about the history and a lot of the industrial side of the river, because it really sort of now gets into full swing. Now, this cottage, I've seen it listed on some maps, historical maps, as Mill Cottage, but it's now named Park Cottage because obviously this part of the estate has now been called the Squareys Park. But it was either the miller's house, I'd imagine. So obviously the lovely Park Lodge, got the name right this time, is the old wall there, the mill pond. This was obviously part of a reservoir for the mill, for the wheel. This is an overflow, it comes down here and then would have, you can see the water rushing through, but we actually use this as a good place to wash our boots off before we get back in the car or something. So it flows under the track here and comes out on this side and actually feeds the, or helps to feed the pond down here. But that lodge there, I've got photographs of it back when the mill here was in use. So this is the old mill, Elmview Mill, what's left of it. It was still here in the 60s, and it was when it was pulled down, but it became a pump house. It used to be a corn mill, but then it became a pumping house, and to feed water up to the underground reservoir higher up. This is where, from the main reservoir pond, which became the trout ponds, the water would have come through. This is where the main wheel would have been. It's later changed when it was a pumping station to a mechanical wheel that, as I say, pumped the water to the reservoir. But it travels on down and goes under the bridge, where the other water flows there into the pond. See the back wall of it. The rest of this is just where it was broken up and the rubble discarded around the sides of it. Such a shame, because it's quite a... Put some images up of what it used to look like before it was pulled down, but there was during World War II, doodle bug came down, I think, over in the field there, and the additional building, which is this part, main building, is where I'm stood now, and that became apparent on the picture. But that there's the additional building that was constructed for the mechanical pumping wheel, but the roof, they got blown off that, I think. Then there was a fire, and then they just pulled the lot down, and it was, I think the local people was just a bit upset really, because it was a structure that everyone came to know and love. It was a bit of a landmark, but this is an important part to the first section of the commerce that it brought to the now town of Westerham, which we're about to walk into. The keen-eyed will notice the videos now are actually from this morning when we first arrived, because I wanted to catch, the sun was in a totally different place over there. It's now gone midday, gone lunchtime, but yeah, I just wanted to get those lovely shots of it this morning. And there's so many people now, because it's still in the Christmas New Year's holidays. It's a Friday today, New Year's Day was Wednesday, but that's an image of what would have once been there, and with the videos from this morning further back of how the whole landscape looked. So these ponds feed what's known as the Long Pond. That will bring us to another part of this video further on, but we're going to head down this way. This is all part of what's known as the Spring Shore, and we're going to head down that path into Westerham. Some of these houses that have taken some of the water from the river, which is now more of a river, through here, heading down. We're heading east. We will backtrack, because a big part of Westerham's commerce from the river comes from behind me, but we're going to go this way because there's a lovely little feature that I'm quite fond of. It was quite nice down here. So I think that was the second meal back there, Elmview meal at the ponds. The first one, I think it may have been at the top there, I'm not certain, but it's the only location I can think of. And the third one is further down this way along the river, on the other outer edge of Westerham, at the base of Hosey Hill, Hosey Road. So from our direction we've come up river. The third mill I believe was down there, but we'll come to that. But I want to branch off and take this route from the park, from the estate, into the town. But it's more or less not to show the town, because there's hundreds of videos of Westerham. It's a beautiful historic market town, but there's a lovely sort of almost medieval feature, which I think is a great part of the Darent River. So this is the bridge, was placed to, from what I remember, where they used to wash the sheep, bringing them in to the town, or the cattle, and lead them down here. So Absolutely lovely little thing heading away. Got a place to wash muddy boots in the river. No. Obviously the sluice gates to strip the flow of the river as it comes through. Now this is all private gardens here, so we can't cross over there, but we'll head back up there. It's a shame there's not a date on here. Isn't that lovely? Another little bridge. This corner here, which I found it on quite an unusual place. Those set of doors and that building on the end, along with this one and these shops, were on a film done through the 60s with Terence Stamp, a very young Terence Stamp, a bit of a sort of semi-horror, where he's, I think it's called The Collector, where he kidnaps someone he's obsessed with, some young woman, and he kidnaps her. But it was a section of it where it was filmed here. It's trying to be somewhere, I think, out in the West Country. But he comes into town for some supplies, and I couldn't believe it when I thought I recognised it when I watched it. I recognised that building and that roof line, and of course the church in the background. It's not the only gruesome story of Westerham. There was a chap who'd come into the market town to either sell horses or livestock, and I believe before showed the image of the General Wolfe, where General Wolfe's statue is there now, how different it was. But he came in and they went into the George and Dragon Inn, which was a coaching inn at the time, and he got extremely drunk on the money he made from the sale, and I assume some bandits saw him in there and followed him, and some say they heard the shot ring out when he was murdered. People heard it in the town. But in actual fact, it's more confirmed that he was murdered in Four Elms, which is beyond the source of the River Darent, where we were at the beginning, well, the early part of the video. So even then, sound of musket fire ringing out across those hills, I think was a bit doubtful. I think that's just how the myth has continued to evolve over time. But an interesting little part of the town's history, if not a bit gruesome. So we'll head back down to the Darent now. So if you do venture down this, up or down this path, it is worth a mention that road is really busy, and it's, you know, you can't trust the dog not to run out. So I would, or children. So just beware. But it is worth coming to see the town. Right, that was a nice little stop. And we're going to walk back to the car. I'm sort of chopping and changing my mind how to do this, because I was going to sort of go through Westerham quite briefly with the history, but because I wanted to do that part first, because it all then makes sense as to the story of how the town has, you know, evolved from the river. But another one I was thinking of, which doesn't have anything to do with the river, but another thing people don't realise, what the town of Westerham was very well known for back in the 60s and the 70s and the early 80s, was the Crayford Conversion Company. They used to take cars and turn them into convertibles, and a lot of the Fords and such were they were more their specialty, like the Capris, the Cortinas, and they even did some of the British Leyland stuff. They even converted some of the Minis and things, but they were here for a number of years. So until their eventual closure in the 80s, I believe, or the late 70s, early 80s. But I spoke to someone who used to work at the factory, he was an apprentice, did his apprenticeship there. And some of the tricks of the trade, things like filling the chassis up with concrete so they wouldn't bend and all sorts, but they still have got a very big following in the classic car world. Yeah, I like the idea, but I'm not sure if the car was designed to have a roof. It was then meant to have it cut off. So this is down from the mill on the old A25, and this is what's known as the Long Pond. It takes its feed and the head sort of flows west, but doesn't really end up anywhere towards Squirry's Colt. I say it heads west, it looks like it's flowing that way, but it certainly comes down from where we were in there by the old mill. But that there is sadly the old General Wolfe pub, which is now been converted to a house. But there's a nice old photograph of that from where the brewery used to be. The brewery buildings over there, it's a building known as Brewery House. I think was the main offices. That was the main brewery house, the Westerham Brewery House. But all up the back where the brewery buildings were are all these new builds where they tore the old brewery down, which was a bit of a shame. But it then relocated to the same spring source beyond where the source we found, where the Darent starts from, down near Crockermel and Four Elms. It was there for a number of years until a good few years ago, when the new owner Robert Wicks moved the whole operation up to the other far side, back to Westerham, to the far side of the town on Beggars Lane. Another part of the commerce that the brewery created was the beer had to be transported to London, and it had its own railway, and the old then train, the Westerham Flyer, used to take it all through the back following the route of the Darent, the track. Some parts of it are there, but I'm not going to brush on that too much in this video, because I'll do a video all on that where I'm going to walk the length for the Western Railway through to Dunton Green, where it terminated on the Sevenoaks main line. Well, we've just come back from the brewery and then walked back down along Spring Shore, and then we've come through this hole in the hedge down here, and this is the turning point and what I think is the location of the last mills. As mentioned, there's a lot of old rubble, debris hidden amongst, if you know where to look. But this is where the Darent cuts through, and this is its last point of this side of Westerham and the Squeries estate, because it goes from here down through under the A25. We're at the base of Hosey Hill and Hosey Common, up there, up that way, and right over there was where it all started. So we finally, our journey's brought us down to this point, as it goes under the motorway, over the road to Quebec House, General Wolfe's Quebec House, and then heads east towards Braisted. I mean, there's not much to see of anything really, but it's all part of the journey. But when I come up here before, I have noticed that there's these hidden walls. You've got to kind of look at these things and sort of try and work out. There's some sort of old structure under there, high up on top of a hill. So I mean, just because the river's there now doesn't mean that was its original course. It could have flowed, I don't know, taken a different path. But and this is Mill Street. It's a tiny little sort of mews set back off the A25. And I've got to say, the decorations, they've decorated it for Christmas, quite beautiful, but it's such a period place. Now that right at the end was another pub. This is the A25 in front of it. That was another pub in Westerham called the Old House at Home, and there's now a house. Now this is probably the closest we're going to find to the remains of the old mill that was here. And if you look, it's similar sort of construction to the mill at the top. If it was built there and the river's the other side of this wall, that would make sense to me. So I just noticed that there's an old base here, an old wall, and this looks like this would have been all the way up there, inside of a building or something, possibly a garage. And then this stonework here in a circle, these two half-moon circles, that what looks like it's possibly a gully, and that over there, and more of the old brickwork behind the car here. So this is actually quite possibly the inside of the mill, rather than me thinking it's up there. So it would be down at the same level as the river behind there. If I can find a picture of it, I'll overlay it, but I've not been able to. The only pictures I've found are the Elmview Mill and possibly the mill at the very top. As we first come down, the first structure we found, the foundation work coming down through the top there. But anyway, we're going to head on. Alright, we're going to say goodbye to Navy at this point, because from here on out it's getting a little bit dangerous. It isn't the end of the video, but it's going to be a bit hard with him as well. So We'll get him on the second video. But for now, Nevi. Oi, Nevi. Say goodbye. Got it, yes. Got it. Bye-bye, Nevi.